Hello everyone. On the feed the World Rapid and Blitz Championship in 2024, in the quarterfinals of the Blitz category, there was a very interesting pairing. A game between Magnus Carlsen and Hans-Moke Niemann. As you may or may not know, in September of 2022 there was a huge scandal between these two players that shook the entire chess world, when Magnus accused Niemann of cheating. But we have an entire video about that topic if you're interested. 27 months have passed between that scandal and this match, and the two got a chance to play against each other. The game began with hands as white and he opened with e4. Magnus then played c5, the Sicilian defense. Knight f3, knight c6, bishop b5, the Rossolimo Nizhmedinov attack. e5, knight c3, d6, bishop c4, bishop e7, d3, knight f6, h3. Magnus castles and then Niemann plays knight a2, with an idea of moving it to g4. Bishop e6 and now knight g4. All of that without castling. Now if Magnus takes, Niemann would open the h-line rook for an attack. Here engines play knight e4 as the best possible move. On a capture, the bishop falls. If white takes with a knight, d5 and a fork. The best move is to take with the bishop, and then after knight c3, bishop f7 check to defend the attacked queen, but even then black's position would be slightly better than white's as you can see here. But Carlsen plays knight d4, a4, a6, knight f6, bishop f6 and knight d5. b5 and Niemann takes. Now if Carlsen takes, next would be an exchange of rooks where black has to take with his queen. And now with a check, white can open up for further plays and attack on the king with the queen and the black square bishop. Hence here Carlsen takes with the knight instead. Niemann plays bishop b2 to attack the queen on a5 with tempo. Bishop g5 to exchange the bishops. Bishop a5, queen b8, and Niemann castles now. Carlsen plays king h8, queen h5 attacks the bishop who retreats to d8, where the bishops are exchanged, f4 to open the f line and activate the rook, f6, e5, de5, and there was a brilliant move for Niemann here in knight f6. Carlsen can't take the bishop because it's mate in 1. If he takes the knight with the pawn, white earns a bishop and a much better position. If he takes with the rook, Niemann will simply exchange, and then if he takes with the pawn, the same story. If he takes with the queen instead, the other rook is left unprotected, but Niemann didn't play that. The game was a blitz, and both players were losing time. He instead plays king h2, knight d6, b3, a5, and knight c3. Carlsen takes at c4, then dc4, queen d2, knight a4. He gives the pawn on c2, but also takes a pawn back and protects the b3 pawn, and attacks the bishop who retreats to f7. Queen d1, they exchange queens. The problem for black here is the a pawn, which is on a black square, so it can't be protected by the bishop, and white who can attack it multiple times. Carlsen plays rook b8, attacking the b3 pawn who is protected by the knight. Now Niemann plays a great move in rook a3, but protecting the pawn and enabling the knight to move again, while also keeping the attack on the pawn. Rook c8 attacks the knight, knight b7, attacking the pawn from two sides which black cannot defend against. The best course of action for Magnus would be to just give up that pawn, but even then white would still have a more advantageous position with two free pawns and material advantage. He instead plays rook b8, now the knight moves to d6, attacking the rook and the bishop, rook c7, and now rook a5. Black cannot take the b3 pawn here, because that would end with a quick mate in 2 for white. Even if Magnus doesn't take, White is still an entire piece in advantage. So Magnus firstly plays king g8, but white is still a pawn in advantage. Next is rook b8, rook a8. A beautiful move in this position was rook a1, because once again black cannot take it due to the same mate as before. Niemann didn't see it because of a lack of time, so he plays knight e7. Carlsen takes back c5, rook a2, b4, rook b2, rook b8, rook c5, but next is rook d7 check. If the king goes to g6, it's followed by rook g8. Then if he takes c4, another check. The king is cornered, as you can see. The only safe spot for the king is f4, and then rook g3 with a mate in 1, which can only be defended by taking the pawn, but then the king would be in a skewer, and taking with the rook will result in a skewer again. So Carlsen plays king e6, letting Niemann take the g7 pawn. Now Niemann threatens with a mate at b6 along with taking the rook. Carlsen plays rook c6, but Niemann plays b5 with the same idea. Mate at b6 if the rook retreats. Carlsen retreats to d6, and here you can pause the video to try and find the winning move that Hans Mock and Niemann found. If you found a mate in 1, rook e8, congratulations. If you like this match analysis, make sure to leave a like on this video, share it with a friend, and subscribe to our channel as it helps us deliver more quality chess content for you to enjoy. Have a nice day and see you in the next one.